Ave, true to Christ. Hey everybody, this is Catholic Trash Talk, and today we are going to be continuing the ecumenical councils. We're going to be talking about Lyons 1. Now, at the time of this recording, I injured my knee. It's doing better, but just stay with me. That's why I'm leaning back. So we will get into the video. It'll be just like usual, where we are going to watch the video that gives us like an idea of what happened with the council. We're going to get into the introduction, and I may read some things, I may skip some things, so I can keep the video short, but we'll see how it goes.
Boys and girls, landlords and lions, welcome to Clarifying Catholicism. You're watching part 15 of a series on the history of the ecumenical councils according to the Catholic Church. Today, we are covering the Council of Lyons. Much of this information was gathered from Joseph Kelly's The Ecumenical Councils of the Catholic Church, a History. So if you want an in-depth dive into these topics, make sure to pick up a copy of his book. To see the rest of our episodes, check out the playlist in the description. Without further ado, on to the show. Last episode highlighted the life and times of Pope Innocent III, an ambitious pope whose deeds included clerical reform, failed crusades, and, well, hating on Jews. Though he was elected to the papacy in his 30s, he died in his 50s, leaving much of his goals unaccomplished. One of Innocent's wards, Frederick, was set to inherit all of Germany and Sicily as its ruler. Innocent recognized how control of both kingdoms spelled trouble for the papal states, which were at a geographic disadvantage if the two kingdoms tried invading. So, the Pope tried cozying up the lad by arranging for his coronation, though he made Frederick promise two things. He would cede Sicily to the Holy See, and he would, of course, go on a crusade against the Muslims. Innocent did not live long enough to see through the end of the bargain, so in 1220 his successor crowned Frederick as the Holy Roman Emperor. However, Freddie refused to give up Sicily and fell ill before his crusade. The Pope, Gregory IX, however, didn't buy his mysterious illness as an excuse and excommunicated him. Fred ignored this and went to crusade anyways, though shockingly, he found that the local Muslim ruler of Jerusalem was tired of fighting and instead sought negotiations. Frederick negotiated the rights to Jerusalem, Nazareth, and Bethlehem, with the caveat that the Muslims could worship freely and a 10-year military truce. Pope Gregory was impressed by this and lifted the excommunication. This love affair didn't last, though. Freddie kept sticking his nose into politics and siding against the Pope. Eventually, Gregory got fed up enough to excommunicate him again in 1239. Frustrated, Gregory tried calling a council, but it failed. A couple popes later, Innocent IV, a canon lawyer and enemy of Frederick's, called a council. This new Innocent not only believed in the traditional idea that the popes have spiritual supremacy over Christianity, but he went a step further to suggest that they ought to have authority over temporal affairs as well. And because Innocent was on poor terms with Frederick, he chose the French city of Lyons to host the council in 1245. The first Council of Lyons was rather small compared to Lateran IV. Only 150 bishops attended, and it lasted just 3 sessions. Innocent identified 5 wounds of the church: reform of the clergy, a new crusade, since by then Frederick's truce had ended and the Muslims retook the Holy Land, the problem of Greeks who were at odds with the Latins living in Constantinople, the Mongolian invasion of Eastern Europe, and Frederick's actions against the papacy. The real meat and potatoes of this council, though, was dealing with Frederick, who reneged on too many deals with the Pope. The council fathers drew up a list of offenses and excommunicated him and any person who considered his reign as legitimate. After Frederick's death in 1250, Popes Innocent and then his successor, Urban IV, offered Charles of Anjou, a French prince, the crown of Sicily, if he agreed to rule it as a papal fief. He agreed, was installed as the ruler, and then, of course, ignored his agreement. As you'll see in the next episode, these conflicts between the crown and the papacy would only fester increasingly. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
So, a lot of political drama going on at the time, right? A lot of different things happening, and it's kind of an extension of what we were seeing at Lateran 1 through 4, where we're dealing with a lot of the political issues and trying to actually establish some sort of leadership within the church and making sure that we are holding ourselves accountable. But Lyons is also taking the direction of we want to make sure that the Pope has authority, because right now the Pope is already seen with authority in the church and has been a big deal for a long time, except for when they had when Rome had power stripped from it in the 3rd or 4th ecumenical council. But anyways, that's just an extension of that. I do remember that I forgot to do the summary last time. So, just to remind you guys, Latrian 4 took place in 1215 AD, and it affirmed transubstantiation to describe the change in the Eucharist and the Mass, and I didn't emphasize that hard enough in the video. They tackled the heresies of Carthyism or Albigensianism, Walden's Ionism, and the teachings of Joachim of Fiore. But this one is going to be taking place in 1245 AD. So let's go to that. So we have, let's see, I don't remember this being too long. Normally I check this beforehand, but I'm a little bit mentally behind today. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll do what we've been doing before. I will read the intro, and I'll need to activate nerdy mode for that one. And then I will go over the next part. I will skip it and pause and then read it on my own and then give you guys a summary. And then I will also do the same for the constitutions because they're a little chunky. That way we can keep the video fairly short. So, the introduction. And because I'm going to be skipping through a lot of this, the constitutions that we see in section 1, we have on rescripts, 2, those whose cases should be entrusted, 3, curtailing legal expenses, 4, on challenging elections, etc., 5, only unconditional votes valid, 6, jurisdiction of conservators, 7, legates and benefices, 8, judge delegates, 9, on premonitory exceptions, 10, objection of robbery, 11, no-show plaintiffs, 12, on early possessions for the sake of preservation, 13, on acceptability of negative assertions, 14, the exception of major excommunication, 15, on judges who give dishonest judgment, 16, on appeals, 17, on the same, 18, on employing assassins, all right, 19, on excommunication 1, and 19 through 22 is all going to be on excommunication. In section 2, we have the management of church debts, 2, on help for the Empire of Constantinople, 3, admission to be made by prelates to the people in their charge, 4, on Tartars, 5, on the Crusade. So, introduction. The dispute, distinctive of the Middle Ages between the papacy and the empire, became very serious under Pope Innocent IV and Emperor Frederick II. Already in 1240, Pope Gregory IX had tried to define the questions between the two powers by calling a general council. But Frederick II, by arms, had prevented the council from meeting. When Innocent IV succeeded as pope in 1243, he gave his earnest attention to renewing this policy. He was able to make his way to 1244 to Lyons, which was outside the direct authority of the emperor, and there proclaimed a council. Some letters of the summons exist, dated January 3rd, 1245, and the days following, in which the purpose of the council is stated, thus, quote, that the church, through the salutary council of the faithful and their faithful help, may have the dignity of its proper position, that assistance may speedily be brought to an unhappy crisis in the Holy Land, and the sufferings of the Eastern Empire, that a remedy may be found against the Tartars and against other enemies, and other enemies of the faith and persecutors of Christian people. Further, for the issue between the church and the emperor, for the reasons we think that the kings of the earth, the prelates of the church, and the other princes of the world should be summoned. End quote. The chief purposes for which council was called, and from the beginning it was called general, seems to have been political ones. When the council opened on June 26, 1245, in a meeting which was probably only purgatory, there were present 3 patriarchs and about 150 bishops, besides other religious and secular persons, among whom was the Latin Emperor of Constantinople. Emperor Frederick II sent a legation headed by Thaddeus of Suessa. Many bishops and prelates were unable to attend the council because they had been prevented by the invasion of the Tartars in the east or the attacks of the Saracens in the Holy Land, or because Frederick II had intimidated them, especially the Sicilians and the Germans. Thus, it was that the 4 chief parties of the council were French and probably Spanish, English, and Italian. In the 3 sessions which were held during the council, which was June 26th, 5th, and July 5th and 17th, the fathers, not without hesitation and dispute, had to treat especially of Frederick II. There seems to have been a bitter conflict between Innocent IV on one side and Thaddeus of Suessa on the other. The sources, especially the Brevis Nota and Matthew Paris, tell us clearly about the nature of the discussion and the other. The sources, especially the Brevis Nota, determined attitude of the Pope, who induced the council to depose the emperor at the session on July 17th, 1245. Oh man, it's a political drama now. A matter appeared unprecedented to the fathers themselves. The council on the question shows us clearly the position reached by the medieval theory and practice of a ruling Christian state, which rested on a double order of authority. In the same session, July 17th, the council also approved some strictly legal constitutions, and other usuries. The Tartars and the Latin East, but the council, unlike the previous councils of the Middle Ages, did not approve canons concerning the reform of the church and condemnation of heresy. Euthanism for the Gregorian reform movement seemed to have died down completely. The council, however, concerned itself with promoting and confirming the general canonical legislation for religious life. The transmission of the texts of the constitutions is involved and still particularly obscure. Only in recent times has it been realized that the authentic and definitive drawing up of the constitutions and their promulgation took place after the council. This collection consists of 22 constitutions, all of which are of a legal nature, and was sent to the universities by Innocent IV on August 25th, 1245. A second collection of 12 decrees was published by Innocent IV on April 21st, 1246. A final collection was issued on September 9th, 1253, and was included in Liber Sextus. However, is not identical with the Constitution of the Council. For in it can be found neither condemnation of Frederick II, which seems to have been the chief matter of the Council, nor the 5 constitutions pertaining to the important questions introduced by Innocent IV at the opening of the Council, namely those concerned with Tartars, the Latin East, and the Crusades. Stephen Kuttner has shown that the constitutions have been transmitted to us through three versions. The conciliar version, known principally from the Chronicle of Matthew of Paris. The intermediate version, known from the Register of Innocent IV, and the definitive version containing two constitutions, which are absent from the other versions, but lacking constitutions not directly concerned with the law. Indeed, the origins of the constitutions must be placed before the council, as is shown in the earlier version of the constitutions. M 13, 15, and 19, attending the council. Evidently, the council fathers were discussing matters which had already been partly worked out, and it was somewhat later that the constitutions acquired their more accurate and definitive legal form. The constitutions taken from Matthew Paris were edited, and these are the... Okay, so that's the editions. This is all the... Okay. Our edition of the constitutions tries to give all the documents truly belonging to the council. Collection 1 has been taken as the base, and variants of M and R are set out in the critical apparatus. The text of Collection 1 has been established from the codices 1 and W. We have seen in microfilm with regard to... Okay, so that's more evidence. We think that the bull deposition of the Emperor Frederick II must be considered a statute of the council, and we place this in front of the constitutions. The transmission of the text is the bull involved, and this is more editorial stuff. So now we get to the deposing of Emperor Frederick II, but before I pause, I do want to remind you guys that a lot of what's going on here is there's political changes, right? And there's power struggles, and this is what we're seeing, where the church is starting to get away from the power of the state and the power of the emperors and trying to become their own state, as we see Rome slowly become the Vatican becoming its own governing authority. But anyways, I will read this and I will get back to you. All right, I'm back. So interestingly, what we see in this little deposition article is that Frederick II was accused of dealing with people dishonestly, of trying to do perjury, of trying to improperly arrest people, in trying to threaten and not submit to the church, in trying to intimidate people and get outcomes that he wants. We saw in this deposition article that Frederick was also accused of committing sacrilege in the way he defiles the church authority and tries to do whatever he wants, and also for heresy, because he's been excommunicated by other bishops, and he's not respecting that or repenting whatsoever. And even in the intro and what we saw in the video, we see that Frederick II was actively trying to subdue the council, trying to prevent the Pope from working within his office and get these councils started, which are completely within his right. So all of these are an example of why Frederick II needs to be deposed, or the church needs to be given more authority so they can properly rule on things such as these. Because we've seen a constant shift of rulers either impeding on the church or trying to play the church or trying to get what they want, and it's just a bunch of bad situations one after the other. So now we'll get into the constitutions. I'm going to read through them quickly. I'm really looking forward to the assassin one, number 8, and I might read that one for you guys just because that's so wild. But we will get back to it as soon as I get done pausing. So this wasn't as interesting as I thought it would be. Now, the previous constitutions before this one specifically is talking about a bunch of legal changes and making sure that the legal process is being done properly. So, a bunch of boring stuff there. But the employing assassins specifically, I thought it was going to be more interesting. But it's basically, if you have a emperor or you have a leader that tries to do fear of punishment or send an assassin to kill a Christian or to even command it, that even though death does not follow from this or receives, defends, or hides such persons, he automatically incurs the sentence of excommunication and deposition from dignity, honor, order, office, and benefice. And these are to be conferred on others by those who have the right to do so. Let such a one with all his worldly goods be cast out forever by all Christian people as the enemy of religion. And after it has been established by reasonable evidence that so loathsome a crime been committed, no other sentence of excommunication, deposition, or rejection shall be in any way be needed. And I find it interesting that it took all the way till now for this to be a reality, to be put in as a constitution. But I will continue reading and then I will get back to you guys. There wasn't really anything else worth mentioning because a lot of this was just political things. A lot of this was just making sure that we are properly conducting ourselves, making sure that property is being taken care of. If a prelate leaves property in your care, making sure that debts are paid properly and that we aren't paying off usurious debts and using the funds of the church for debts that should not be being used for terrible debts. But what we saw in Lyons 1 today, which wasn't cited in the Catechism, it took place in 1245 AD, and this was the deposing of Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II, which was a disciplinary decision. And this was a mostly political council. It was also known as a general council, so this isn't what you would consider an ecumenical council, but it is an interesting window into the time period and what was going on at the time. But that is everything, guys. Feel free to bully me in the comments and tell me why I'm wrong. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a blessed day, and peace be with you. Bye-bye.